In a world full of distractions, there is one big question on every dog owner's lips.
How do I become more than just the person holding the other end of the leash?
We all get dogs with a dream in mind, a vision of the future. And if right now your everyday reality isn't quite that picture you had in mind, you are in the right place.
It really doesn't have to be this way.
You absolutely can and will be more to your dog than just the person who gets in between them and the world.
The key is you need to be more sexy.
More sexy than the neighbourhood cat.
More sexy than the jogger in the park.
More sexy than that half-eaten hamburger they just found on the floor.
And yes, even more sexy than the dog across the road.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Lauren.
Together we're Absolute Dogs.
And you're listening to the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast. Welcome. Those of you that are checking into the Sexier Than a Squirrel podcast, today I have got an amazing treat for you, and that is Kaz. Kaz, you're here from the Warwickshire Police and you're a dog handler, and not just any old dog handler. You have the most amazing little Cocker Spaniel, Pocker, and you also have your GP dog. First off, I want to say a massive thank you for coming in and joining us today, and I've got so many questions for you. So welcome, and thank you for being here. So Kaz, tell me, what do you do and what got you into this in the first place? Like, tell us about it.
Okay, I'm a police officer with Warwickshire Police, first of all. I've been doing that now just coming up 20 years, so yeah, long time now. So I started off as we call a reactive officer, and then from there I went onto the dog section after 5 years of doing the initial 999 calls and whizzing around the county, and then went and joined the dog section, and now I work on the dog section, so handling Elsa, which is my GP dog, and Pocker, which hopefully will be my drugs cash firearm search dog, with a few licenses, and that's what I do. And I also do some of the instructing. I've got my instructor certificates for my GP and for my drugs side of teaching with the dogs.
I love it how we just like throw in drugs there, and we throw in cash, firearms, weapons. So tell me, when you say GP, what do you mean by GP dog? So give me, I've been really lucky. I've spent the last few days with the police, and I've been working alongside some of you guys and the great instructors, and it's been amazing. But so I've definitely learned lots of new words. At the same time, tell me about, or tell everybody that's listening, because we've got some amazing listeners who are going to want to know all about this. What is a GP dog? What do they do?
Okay, a GP dog is what you call a general purpose police dog. So that's usually your German Shepherds, your Belgian Malinois, your Dutch Herders. They are, what they'll do is tend to turn out for people. So they do, like if there's been a burglary, for example, they might turn up at the scene and then track. If the person's run away that's done the burglary, they track and locate them, or they might be looking for someone that's gone missing, an old person that's wandered off from home and got lost in the woods, that sort of thing. Or if you've got public order type, where it's like a fight at a pub, that's what you German Shepherd or your GP, a general purpose. So you're a big dog.
Walk around the football stadiums and they have a bit of presence about them. So I've seen some big black dogs, or and I've just obviously spent some time at the police last week, and they definitely had some huge Malinois and the dogs that kind of would mean business. They look like their presence is there.
Yeah, okay. They're the ones that are gonna bite you if you're naughty.
Yeah, naughty.
It's the easy way to put
naughty
it.
people behave. Okay,
yes.
and then the other dogs. Tell me a little bit about what they are and what they do.
The other side of them is what you call a specialist search dog. So your little dog, as we tend to end up calling them. So that tends to be your spaniels, your labradors. It doesn't have your cockers, all that sort of thing. Tends to be, and you have two types or several types of specialist search dogs, but the main ones are what you call your explo dog and your drugs cash firearm search dog. So they're two separate sort of search dogs.
I have to say I had a huge amount of a brand new experience this week running with drugs. That was definitely a different. I've never been a drugs runner in my life before, I'll be honest, and actually that was a whole new experience. So yeah, drugs being one area that you guys tackle, and just to clarify for everyone listening, I was working with the police and I was carrying so that they were training on me. So they were using me as a training person. And then obviously you have other areas where it might be explosives and we did that very differently.
Yes. And then also as well, the side of specialist search is what we call the forensics dogs. So which can either be for blood or semen or for cadavers or the dead bodies or remains of people. So there's lots of different types of search dogs, but mainly what I work in is the drugs, cash and firearms side.
Wow, God! I mean, it's huge, isn't it? Like it's absolutely massive. It's bigger than I suppose it's bigger than I initially imagined. So, how did you actually become a police dog handler? What's the process to become a police dog handler? Because so many people I know, they would love to do it. So I bet we're going to inspire loads of people out there to follow their passion, right? And for me, I did say when I was working with the police this week, guys, you're as lucky as I am. Like, we're lucky because I feel like I never work a day in my life really, because I love doing what I do. I live what I love, and I train dogs, right? And there are very few places I go in and I feel exactly the same. And it was like this hub of cool energy and fun, and everyone loved what they were doing, which was cool. So how does that process work?
Right, okay, I have to say it is the best job in the world.
I love it.
I'll get that one in there now. But first of all, you've got to be a police officer. So you have to first of all join the police as a police officer, and then you have to your 2 years probation. So once that's out and you're considered a fully fledged police officer and you can go out on your own, at that point you can then look to what we call specialised. So whether you're going to firearms or traffic or dog handling, which is where I went. So that's the process, basically.
So 2 years, past that 2 years, then you're allowed to apply to be one of the dog handlers.
Yeah.
Okay, then how does that process go from there?
Right, from there, so if you apply for all the dog handlers, so it's usually interviews, you get an assessment process to see, because not everybody's out to be a dog handler. There's certain, attributes that you look for in a person that's going to work with the dogs, because obviously you are working on your own. It's just you and the dog.
And go on, we've touched on it there. What attributes do you think make a good handler?
Someone, first of all, that likes dogs is a good thing. You laugh, but you'd be surprised, because the role itself becomes, it's not just a job anymore. The dogs live at home. It becomes part of your family. It takes over your life, because it's a lifestyle rather than just...
And I love what you say there, because I was chatting to someone the other day. In fact, I was interviewing for a job, and I said to the person I was interviewing, this is not just a job, this is a lifestyle and it's a life choice, and you can't just clock off at 9 o'clock and say you're done, when actually something might need your attention. That might be a dog, that might be some vet care, there's lots of different things that might need your attention, and your job is exactly the same, right?
Exactly that. The dogs that you have, they live at home with you, they're part of you, they are your crewmate. You spend a lot of time with them.
They're your teammate.
Yeah, they are your teammate. That's the best way to put it. When you go home at night, it's not a case of just shut in the kennel and that's it, see you in the morning.
You invest so much more.
You put so much more into them, and you can't finish at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and not be back until 6, and that's it. I'm not saying it's part of it. So the handlers love the dogs. They are part of the family. They are part of your home life. You can't just say, right, that's it.
You're very invested.
Yeah,
for sure.
Completely
You're very invested. So how does that training process look? Because I think that surprised me actually when I enjoyed some time we did some building searches, and we were doing explosive stuff, and we were doing drugs, and we weren't doing drugs. That sounds horrendous. We were searching for drugs. Yeah. And we were doing lots of different bits. But what I didn't initially understand when I was there, I suppose, at the beginning of the week, was that actually it's a long process. It's not just a 1 week course. This is a long process. So how does this process look in terms of days, weeks? How does it look?
Right, okay. So, for example, say we'll start with a general purpose dog first of all. So we've got a dog, so approximately 12 to 18 months old.
So your general purpose dog, her name is Elsa.
Yeah. So I had her from a puppy, so that's slightly different, but we'll go with the initial dog. So general purpose dog, it's 12 to 18 months old. We've had a look at it. We think it's got what we think will make it suitable police dog. So it then goes on a 13-week course with its handler. So during that 13 weeks, it learns
So handler goes on the course, matched up with a dog that's appropriate for the course. Put the two together and hope they gel.
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't always happen. There can be mismatched dog and handler, but those two together will do the course together, and at the end of the course, they do what we call
dog.
Yeah, but they have to, at the end of the 13 weeks, they have to do what we call a licensing assessment. So somebody from, it doesn't have to be, but we tend to try and keep it, someone from a different force will come in and have a look at the dog and handler and say, yes, they meet the necessary level to be an operational police dog. I
suppose to critique it fairly.
Yeah, to just to make sure that, it's what's happened, and it's right, and the dog's up to level and the handler's up to level. Yeah. So that's your general purpose dog. Then look at your specialist search dog. Again, we'll start at the beginning without doing all the puppy bit, because that makes it slightly different. A whole different journey. So again, probably 12 to 18 months, depending on the type of dog or whatever. And that's a 6 to 8 week course. again, handler and dog matched up, and they learn from there to carry on and go from there.
What I was surprised about, and I didn't realise this, is usually you'd have a GP dog first. So you'd have a GP dog, and only then, and once you're established with your GP dog, would you then have your specialist search dog usually?
Yeah, usually that's how it works. You GP dog first, and then you get a specialist search dog. The reason why you tend to go do your GP dog and get established with that is because it's a different type of search, and there's different skills that you're using with your GP dog than it will be with a specialist search dog. So it'd be unfair to give someone 2 new dogs at the same time and say, right, learn everything all at once. So you give them a GP dog, let them settle into that, then give them a specialist search dog.
So you almost have an extra team member at some point. So your team actually...
But it makes the van as such more efficient, because if you've got 2 dogs in the van, you've got the capability. Yeah, you've got 2 cages in there. You might as well have 2 dogs that do different roles within the one van.
So you're very, very, you're able to handle most of the situations and scenarios you're going to be put in front of.
Yeah, basically. That's
really cool.
That makes it easy.
Really cool. And so a little bit about the breeds that you have currently. So tell me a little bit about Elsa, and then tell me a little bit about your youngster, Pocker.
Okay, Elsa is a German Shepherd Belgian Malinois cross. I think Dad was the Shepherd, Mum was the Mallee, if I remember right. So that's what she is. That tends to be what we use general purpose wise, either German Shepherds or Belgian Malinois or Dutch Herders, that type of breed. And the only main reason for that is because we found that they're good all rounders at everything we want them to do. So from tracking to biting to building, searching.
Just what the job says.
Yeah.
It says general purpose, doesn't it?
So,
do the job.
so they suit everything that we need them to do, so that tends to be why we use them. And then for the specialist search, obviously we've got Pocker,
little working cocker. And so what made you go, I suppose you had Gwen before Pocker, and what was Gwen?
Gwen was an English Springer Spaniel.
And I did notice there were quite a few on the course that I was on. The mixture was definitely English Springers and Cockers, so that was the mix. What makes a handler go for those breeds?
Okay, police tend to use those type of breeds is because they are designed to go all day. They have that drive to want to keep working and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, even when they've maybe not been successful. Because it could be a case, especially on the drug side as well, I could do search one house, there's nothing in that house, go to the next house, search that house, there's still nothing in that house, and it's not till maybe the 3rd or the 4th house that we get to that actually she finds what I needed to find, or the dog gets. So I would need a dog that wants to keep going no matter, even if it's not successful. And we say that now, but we build up to that. We don't just throw them in at not being successful.
That's huge. I mean, that's massive, isn't it? Because that's actually something that, you're right, I'd say sometimes a border collie that I obviously own and train, I don't think they've got anywhere near that sort of mental or physical stamina in something like search without really building it. Like, you'd really have to build it. Whereas put them on sheep, I think they would do that all day.
Yes.
Again, it's like fit for purpose.
Yeah, it's what you look for. It's that natural, what they want to do. We say they are gun dog breeds that have been designed for years of breeding to be out in the field working on a shoot all day. So that desire to work all day is
transferred over. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. So did you have any training experience prior to taking on police dogs? So before the police dogs, what sort of training experience did you have? Where did you come from?
Right, okay, originally,
where were you made?
Originally I worked with horses years ago, so that's where, and my background mainly is horse side, so training horses and bringing on youngsters.
So you transferred those skills over?
Yeah, kind of like the animal side of it rather than the physical training of the dog, just that natural want to be with animals, working with animals type of side just moved over.
And if someone wanted to maybe, I don't know, put themselves in a position that you've done, like what you've gone through, what advice would you give someone who was maybe keen to follow this path, or someone that was keen to maybe explore it a little more? What words of wisdom could you impart?
The main thing, obviously, first of all, you've got to want to be a police officer, because although I work with the dogs and I love that side, and that's it, ultimately, foremost, I'm a police officer. So if a job comes in that I need to deal with and it's not a dog related job or something the dogs can do, I've still got to do with that.
Really?
Unfortunately, it can be anything. So that's got to be the foremost. If that's the line you want to go down and want to become a dog handler, yes, you've got to love dogs, but ultimately you've got to want to be a police officer first, because that's your role. You are a police officer with dogs, but your role is a police officer. So if that's what you're thinking, you can do things like there's, especially for younger people, there's like police cadets. A lot of forces do that these days, where you can go and join in and just see whether you actually like doing it or become
experience it.
Yeah,
and I have to be honest, I spent obviously the last few days there, and I honestly, if I didn't have this lifestyle, I could quite easily sit in that one. Like, it was really, really, really good energy and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, I don't know a typical day. So tell me what a typical day would be like for you. And I know there's no typical, because you're very like me. My days, if someone says, what's a typical day? I don't know. There's so many things. But give me, I don't know, some scenarios that you might go through in a day. And obviously normal scenarios as well, whatever you can share with us. How does what sort of time of day does your shift start? How does it work?
Well, that's a big question, that one. Right. Like you said, there is no typical day, because I don't know when I walk to work what I'm going to go to or what calls are going to come in for each day. But we'll go, like, for example, a training day that I could have with Elsa or Pocker, that would supposed to start about 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's from 8 in the morning till 6 at night. And during that day, we'd do various training scenarios to bring the dog on and build on their training. So that's quite a straightforward
set day. I love those days. And I was quite surprised actually at how early everyone was there. They were all there from like 7. They were all chomping at the bit. They were all literally, the car park was bonkers. I was thinking, God, my breakfast didn't get up like served till 7. I couldn't even get there, and they were all there. I was like, my Lord, they were all there.
We start like later in Warwickshire.
There you go. Warwickshire slightly later. And then, so tell me about like a typical, I don't know, on the beat type day.
Okay, so
I know there's no typical.
Yeah, but there's for day shifts and things like that we work an 8-6 on a day shift. So you start at 8 o'clock, and it could be anything that could come in. It could be usually days tend to be doing your warrants first thing in the morning, so you come out and start earlier than 8 o'clock. That's when you...
And go on for the novice police person.
Okay, I'm going to come back to what warrants is.
Tell me about warrants.
Like, warrants, like when we go basically with the big, what we call the big red key. So it's a big boshing that we go put the door, like someone's, let me explain it probably better than that. Like, we'll start again. Somebody's basically, a police officer's got information that maybe the drugs being dealt at a house, or we've got what we call intelligence, that something's happening at the house, drugs maybe being kept there, or cash or firearms that shouldn't be there. So we go get what we call a warrant. So we go to the courts and say to the courts, we want to go into this house because we've got X, Y, and Z, and we think that's what's in there. And given maybe what information we give to the courts, we'll decide whether the judge or not will give us the warrant. Once we've got the warrant, we can then go to the house. And even if they don't want to answer the door, or we want to surprise them, we can
be there
and be in and put the door in.
And that's the sort of situation that you would have a dog there with you?
Yes, because depending on what you're searching for, that would be when Pocker would do her job, because she would search the house for whatever we're looking for. But also maybe Elsa would be then working, because she could cover cover the back, so she'd go around the back of the house. So when they put the front door in case anyone tried to run away, Elsa's there to stop them from wanting to run away. So that's sort of on sort of day shift type thing. That tends to be when they tend to happen during the day. And then you tend to have, like, you're looking for your missing people and things like that, can be in the days where you go walking across fields. It could be anything. It could be cars. It's hard to say what a typical...
It's a real mixture.
Yeah, it is a complete mixture. And then you have the night shifts. Night shifts I always find are better for working Elsa, because there's less people out and about, and less people out and about makes it easier for me to work her, because there's less distractions and less people walking across where maybe somebody's walked that I want to follow. So night shifts that's when you're out looking for your burglars and your car key. Not that they don't happen in the day, you still look for them in the day, but that's more likely when people's houses get broken into, like at night. And
you have a crazy cool lifestyle. I haven't even thought about things like this.
So this is all the things that
might be happening.
But then also it can be a case that some of the drugs get moved at night, so therefore then Pocker would be needed to search the cars and things like that. There's, like I say, it's so hard because there isn't a set.
And this was a whole new, I'll be honest, I think, I wonder whether I'm sometimes completely naive to, when I was working with these guys in the middle of the city centres, and they were sort of talking about like drugs runs and stuff, I was like, God, I haven't even thought about like how they'd move stuff. So yeah, your whole lifestyle is sort of geared to a degree around what they might be doing.
Yeah, I mean, because ultimately what you want to do is not necessarily target the person that's using the drugs, because that's just one small person. What you want to do is target the person that's delivering and dealing the drugs, because they're your problem really. So the higher up the chain of such as the drugs you can go, the better, because the more you can disrupt the...
So if you think about then, I suppose you've had some highlights of working with dogs and being with dogs. What would be, I suppose, a situation or a time that you've been particularly proud of one of your dogs? And it could be either your GP dog or your other dog, a time that you think that's really memorable.
We'll go with drugs, because we love them.
I don't know how you want to say that. Yes, it's a great point.
There's been a few fines when I had, not with Pocker, because Pocker's not licensed, so she's not out, she's training in a minute.
And just to clarify for everyone, Pocker's not licensed, she's a young working cocker,
Yes.
so she's just a baby. She's
just over 12 months old now.
so she's kind of coming into licensing age.
Yes.
And when I was chatting to the licensing guys this week, she's going to hopefully be licensed October, November.
Yes, fingers crossed, all going well.
So give me an example of a memorable, proud moment with Gwen.
Gwen, we'll go on with Gwen, because there was a car that had been up to Birmingham. It was a day shift job. Day shift rather than nights. Car had gone up to Birmingham. It had been in Birmingham for 2 days, and then it was coming back down the M5 to go back down towards Somerset, and the car got stopped because we had information that it had been up to collect drugs in Birmingham. So they stopped the car, and then they called for a drugs dog to come and search it, and I was the one that was on duty. So I went to search the car. And I put Gwen in the car, and she was so busy in this car. I knew there was something in there. We just couldn't find it.
It was there.
It was there somewhere.
Busy.
And I knew because of how busy Gwen was. I say busy, she's like, her whole body language is all excitable, and she's racing around the car. And I knew it was going to be a fairly large amount because of how busy she was. So it was giving off, there was lots of scent in the car. So we searched and searched and searched the car and still couldn't quite find it. And she wasn't giving me what we call an indication, which tells me, oh, it's here. She was just running around the car lots. So I ended up trying to pull panels off inside the car and still not getting what I wanted to find. And eventually I opened all the car doors and worked around the outside of the car. And as we came round to one of the back car doors, she got to, like, the tiny little drainage holes you get at the bottom of a car door, nose on that, bang, and she just froze there, which is what Gwen's indication is that she's found it. And I said, it's in the door panel. And when they actually pulled the door panel off, like all like the door handle and everything like that all came off. Within the door panel was a big sort of cricket ball amount of cocaine. So I was very pleased, because you would have never found that unless you ripped the car apart without the dog. And that the sort of finds that without the dog you wouldn't have got, that you get most proud of, because
The dog really takes you to a new level.
Yeah, it makes it so much more, and it's just proud because of the fact you wouldn't have got it without her. And
what's the most cash Gwen ever found?
Gwen had £100,000 hidden in a van.
I mean, it's insane, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is insane.
Again, that was actually a day job as well. That was just, again, information we had. So the van was stopped, popped Gwen in there, and because it was quite a large amount, and the way it had been hidden, she actually found that one quite easily.
And just because I'm interested in this, it just sounds like an interesting thing. And I kind of know a little bit about this because I remember the story about Pocker. But what happens to that cash? Where does it go?
Right, okay. The cash is seized.
I was thinking, do you get to keep it?
No.
Gaz?
Unfortunately, it doesn't end up in my bank account. No.
So cash is seized.
Cash is seized, and a certain percentage of that, it gets seized under what they call the Proceeds of Crime Act. So it's been seized because of it's illegally obtained, basically. Yeah. It's come via whatever means, but it's either from selling drugs or whatever they've done to get the cash that's not legal, so therefore it gets seized. And part of that is what we call the Proceeds of Crime Act. When it's seized, some of that does come back to fund the police in certain things. So like obviously with Pocker, she's been funded by the Proceeds of Crime Act, so we've applied.
So do you mean that Pocker's been bought with drugs money?
Yes, basically. And to find more drugs.
Which is amazing. I just think that's such a nice, well rounded story. So I suppose, what is the cost of, do you think, producing a dog, or like because there's a huge amount of time involved, isn't there? There's a lot invested.
I have been asked this before, and I never like to put a figure on it, just because
I agree.
For one dog, it might take less time than another dog. And with like Pocker, we'll talk about Pocker just because she's easy and she's lovely.
She's lovely.
And, because we had her as a puppy, we've done it very slowly over a long period of time. So we haven't done the 6 to 8 week course like from a dog that's never done anything. I've gradually built up the building blocks for her. So initially she started off doing really simple little games as a tiny puppy. It's just scent recognition, and that was it. No searching, just that gives me some sausage, or that gives me a treat, or whatever, and then just built up on that. So it's hard to say time wise how much you put effort and time into her and all the rest of it, because, and it could be a case, I mean, I don't think we're not with her, but you could do all that with a dog and then get to the end and they not make it.
I think that's one of the biggest things, isn't it? Because when we were working with the licensing team this week, some of the dogs, they say they don't make it. They haven't got the attributes that you need as a police dog. So Talking on that, I suppose, what are the attributes you need in a? I know they're different. So, but in a GP dog and a search dog, what do you need?
Okay. With your with your GP dog, you're looking for a dog that's what I class as balanced. So it's confident, it's happy, it wants to play, it wants to interact with people, it wants to play with its toy, because that's going to be its
because I think
reward.
Sometimes this is really misinterpreted, because I know like lots of the rehome centres and places like that will often try and gift a dog, but often the misinterpretation is they want to gift an aggressive dog, and that's the big misconception I suppose here, is that all of the best dogs that I watched over the last week, and I know from the past of training sort of bite work and training different sort of IPO and games like that, the best dogs are the most confident dogs, because they're not biting out of fear.
Yes.
They're loving their job.
Yeah.
It's a game, right?
It is a game. It's a game to both the big dogs, as we call them, and the little dogs. And it isn't about, we just got an alligator on the end of the lead that's going to bite everybody and anyone. And like you say,
an alligator.
And it's not a case of you're biting out a fear, like you say, a fear or a nervous aggression.
Because it's a different bite, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a very different bite. And it's not a proper hold when they do that, and it's not. They don't look confident in their job.
But also, that to me, it's not fair to put a dog in a situation that it's not happy in. If it's nervous and that's why it's aggressive, then it's not happy in its situation. So why would you then put it into a situation where it's got to confront people? That's almost a little bit cruel on the dog, because
I agree.
Mentally it's not fair on the dog.
It's not. And actually the pressure you're going to put them under is tough. And then how about the search dogs?
Before I go on to search, I'll just say about the GP as well, is also the reason why you want a confident dog, not a naturally, like you say, aggressive dog or nervous aggressive dog, is because one minute I could be looking for a 5-year-old child that's gone missing.
Amazing.
I don't want my dog to be thinking, 5-year-old child, I found that bite.
Yeah.
Or it could
nervous,
be
worried, anxious.
But then the next minute I could be asking my dog to find the armed robber that's just legged it from.
Bring him down.
Yeah, and I want him then to be able. So that's why it's so important about the dog being confident in itself and
100%.
happy, rather than being just a biting machine.
This is a dog who loves their job.
Yes, they want to work. And then
I love that. Go on. Search. No, I was just literally giggling because actually that's one of the things last week. I think they were desperate to bring me down in a bite suit, and I was like, absolutely no chance. There is no chance. When one of the girls in the car, I think she was really nice girl, Hannah and Kelly, they were called, and they both said, would you like to be brought down? And I was like, no, I really wouldn't. One of Matt's ambitions, actually, he really wants to be in a full bite suit and brought down, whereas for me, I'm happy watching on the sideline of that one. I'll always stay on this side. Tell me about your search, because I loved watching. I have to say, I love watching both sides. I've seen probably more in the past of the general purpose dogs. So for me to watch the explosives and the drugs and the cash and the weapons dogs, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it, particularly loving spaniels. So for me, it was a real, I got a huge buzz off doing it. So tell me what you're looking for in a Pocker. Tell me what you're looking for in a Gwen.
A Pocker and Gwen, a little bit crazy is probably a nice way to put it. So not what you class as your average pet. So there'll be too much for someone, too much energy, too much. I want to get going. I want to do stuff. I need to be doing something to keep my brain occupied. So that's the first thing. Very much into a toy or whatever toy ball. We tend to use tennis balls or Kongs really for ours, but because that ultimately becomes their reward. And then, like I say, the desire to want to keep going all day and keep going, even when you've done X amount of searching, you want to keep doing another search. So it's that bundle.
And how long might they need to go for?
You wouldn't search for longer than, say, 20 minutes, half an hour in a period of time, just because they'll get what they call nasal fatigue, where basically, not that they stop sniffing, but they stop processing what they're sniffing. So you need to let them have a little rest in between to make sure that they're effective in what they're doing.
But it's a long time of concentrated work, I suppose.
Yes, and like particularly we talked about the drugs dogs, searching several houses and maybe not getting a reward because they haven't found anything. With your explosives dogs, you could be searching a big venue, but it's what we call a defensive search. So we think some royalty are coming to stay or visit. We don't necessarily think that there's going to be anything there, but we're doing it to make sure there isn't
like
anything.
Clearance of a building.
Yes.
So they were talking about the Commonwealth. They were talking about there seems to have been a lot of work there for you guys there's a lot coming, basically.
More that'll be very much for the Explo dogs and a little bit for the drugs, cash, firearms, because they find the firearms. And one thing that's quite important to say is, why we keep the Explo separate from...
This was like a complete revelation for me, because I'd never really thought about it, because I know that it's separate, and I know that it is something that's separate, and when it was explained to me, I was like, of course, that is why you would definitely keep those separate. So explain to me why you would keep explosive search dogs separate from drugs, cash, weapons.
Okay, so we've got our explosive dogs, we've set him up, he's gone off and searched, and he's given me what we call an indication, so he's frozen, stirred at a point wherever that is. That's therefore telling me that there's an explosives hide in that area. If there's a basically explosive hide, a bomb is there, I don't really want to be getting much closer. So it's then for what we call EOD, so the defence team, the military, to come out and look at detonating it safely. Now, if my drugs dog also did explosives and they gave an indication, I don't know what it's indicating on. So if my drugs dog came in and they both
could be telling you there's some cannabis over there,
or it could be telling me there's a bomb.
Yeah, and you're going to behave very differently on the cannabis and the bomb.
Find. Yeah, so and obviously the military aren't going to be very impressed being called out just for a little bunch of cannabis. No. So why? So basically, if your explosives dog hits or gives you an indication, it's indicating on explosives.
And an explosives dog really is trained purely explosives.
Yes,
there's nothing else
they do. That's all they do. Yeah.
So they're specialist explosives trained. They're going to do things like search buildings, search
routes. Could be what we call a route. So
somewhere that the president's driving, for example. Yeah. When President Trump came to the UK or whatever, you might do the route that he will be going along.
So to make sure there's nothing there set up to...
Crazy. Like, it's something that you don't even think about. And watching that team work, that was a very different style of search as well, without going into too much detail. Gosh, it was thorough.
Because the difference there with searching for the drugs and the explosive team, when they go into a building, they've got to make sure they can get out safely. Mm-hmm. So everywhere they go, there's got to be clear. Well, with the drugs dog, if I say Gwen up to search everything and I say up at the front door and she bombs off into the living room or the kitchen and gets really busy, I can just walk in and go and have a look, see what she's doing. But you can't do that with an explosives dog. They've got to be very much, no, we clear this area before we move forward.
So it's very, very thorough. Now, whilst we're on to some detail, because this is a bit like detail for those geeky people that are listening out there that kind of go, I want to understand the detail. Tell me about a passive dog in comparison to, like, what's the style? What's the style of search? Because I think that's quite good.
Yeah, I suppose we've not covered this yet. With your drugs, cash, firearms dogs, you have two types of dogs. So you have your passive dog and what you call your proactive dog. So your proactive dog searches like your cars, your buildings, and like an outdoor area, like a park or something. While your passive dogs are the ones you see at the airport searching the people. So they are wandering in the line or whatever.
And so me, when I was doing my drugs running this week, that was the dog that was searching me out.
Yes.
Okay, so I was walking along very discreetly, got my drugs in my pocket, walking along, and that dog goes and targets on me and sort of says it's here. And then, even though I carry on walking, that dog carried on pulling, but never at any point jumped on me or grabbed me or pounced on me. No. So tell me about the difference.
So basically what they're kind of taught to do is initially just to sit in front of you. So you've got the dog until you sit.
And I was trying really hard to walk away.
Because you kept walking, the dog obviously can't physically sit, say, oh, it's this one. So he'll keep coming with you. That's why. The difference between the two is the passive dog is scanning the air, like your air around your cloud as such, as you're walking along. So he's learning to air.
You saying I'm smelly? My odour.
Yeah, but what he's actually picking up on is the drug odour that's coming off you, because that's what's in your pocket.
Yeah.
So as you walk along, you've got this little scent cloud around you. So he's learning to scan the people as he goes past. Say, oh, actually it's you. I need to follow it.
Yeah.
When it comes to the proactive dogs, when they're searching a building, they go in and they start to search, and then they'll get into the scent cloud and such, and they'll learn to get to the source of whatever's giving it off, and it's like, bang, it's that one, rather than just scanning the air around an area. They'll give you exactly where it is. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
No, really interesting. And then when we think about those dogs, you don't normally have them doing both, or sometimes you do have them doing both?
You can have them doing both. Not every dog will take to doing both, but you can have them doing both. It's just that they've got to learn that there's two different things, different games. Yeah.
Interesting. No, I love it. I think it's super cool. So give me one of the training exercises that you might do frequently to top up your dog's confidence or reliability, or something you might do. So for example, obviously I teach agility. One of the things I I constantly top up retrieve because I think retrieve's a great thing for me to have in my toolkit, but it doesn't relate to necessarily being at Crufts or being at a big arena. And the other thing I top up in agility is I reward them lots for doing tight turns, and I also reward them lots for doing certain behaviours that I'm going to need later on. What would be your like top ups or things that you do in the long run with any of your dogs? Is there anything that you do to like keep up the skills?
One of the ones is what we call scent recognition. So it's called we call it potting. So you have little pots, almost like sugar shakers, as the ice and sugar shakers that've got the holes in the top. So there'll be either a line or a carousel of pots. So the dog goes around, sniffs each pot and tells you which one has got the substance in. So it's just making sure that the dog actually does recognise that substance, and that substance gets its reward. So that's something you do usually quite regularly on training, and it can also be used to firm up an indication. So if you've got a dog that's maybe starting to try and interfere a little bit because they're getting a little bit frustrated because they're not getting their reward quick enough, because it's contained within the pot, you can almost let the dog work out, no, I've got to freeze and look at it, rather than I can whack it and pull it out and bite at it, because the last thing I want a dog doing out there on the streets is starting to bite at drugs, because I don't want it ingesting
they've got.
Whatever, cocaine, heroin, whatever, not only the medical things, but I don't want my dog
no, it doesn't work. Booker and Gwen types are high enough already, I feel.
Without so
any help.
Yes.
And do you ever see a dog lose any confidence on a job? So have you ever seen a dog lose their heart or lose their confidence? Like, for example, when I was working with some of the dogs last week, one of the dogs that tapped on a spinning chair, for example, you could just see it back off. Now, the handler was phenomenal, and the dog was a really stunning dog and tried really hard. But you could see with the wrong handler and the wrong dog, that could have gone very differently wrong. And all it was a spinning chair. And yet the handler really acknowledged it and assessed it and got it so spot on. At the same time, I worry for someone who doesn't.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because that's one of the things that Poco had a little bit of an issue with earlier on. She jumped on a few chairs, because we teach them to jump on whatever they want to do.
Very natural for a spaniel, I feel.
let them do whatever they like. If they want to get on the sofa, whatever, you can do it, because obviously we don't know where people are going to hide things in the houses. So Poco had jumped on several chairs, no problems, quite happy. She happened then to jump onto a spinning chair. Obviously it spun. Being a young dog, a little bit, I'm not too sure. And she did it again on another chair, and again, just knocked her confidence slightly. So therefore then we came to do a search, and it was near, in order to get to the hide, she had to jump on the chair to get onto the desk. And she didn't want to jump on the chair, just because she's had a couple of experiences with it. So all you just go back a step, just make it fun again. It's got to be, she's got to be confident in what she's doing. So all we did was I kept the chair still so it couldn't physically move, and then just get her jumping on the chair. And just for even jumping on the chair, she then got rewarded because she's young and learning. So, well done, here, have some sausage, or here, have your toy for jumping on the chair, and then build it up from there. So put back in the confidence, and now it's like, I'll jump on everything again.
I love it. I'm a spaniel.
So it's just about, if they do get a knock or something, it's about not forcing the issue, but just coming back a stage and making it fun again, and just putting back in what was there in the first
Life's a game.
Definitely,
life's a game. So what's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you as a police dog handler? Have you got anything that's a little bit funny or a little bit like, what's happened to you? Many, I'm sure.
Which one can I talk about? Gwen got a bit of a reputation for decapitating statues. On searches. We happened to do, with a particular search team, we did 3 searches in a row, and luckily there was stuff in each house, but
in the meantime, as she was searching,
she was a bit crazy, and she tended to take the heads off statues, and she did it in 3 houses of 3 statues, ornaments, whatever, where she took the head off. So
decapitation, Gwen.
Yeah, so
that's too funny. That is too funny. So, do you think the dogs see this as work or play?
Oh no, it's just a big game to them. It's got to be a game to them. You can't. They've got to enjoy what they do. They've got to want to do it. You can't force them to do it. They've got to want to play the game, and if they don't want to play the game, then you can't say, if they didn't want to play and you went and put them in a house to search a house, they could go out as if they were, but they're not going to tell you it's there, then you're going to miss what you need to find. And there's nothing worse than you searching and somebody else saying, actually no, you've missed something, or your dog's
behind you.
And you're thinking, They've got to want to. You've got to be confident if you go searching with your dog that if it's there, they're going to find it for you, or if they can find it, they will find it.
So that was a really good point. Actually, it's something again I learned this week that you guys have to be like checked up on in terms of how your dogs reassess. They're not just assessed once.
Oh no,
they're assessed again, which I think that was another like a revelation to me.
Yeah. So for you, like say your drugs dog, we'll go with. Basically, at the end of the training, their initial training, they're licensed. So they're licensed, but they're only licensed with that handler. So Pocker will only license initially with myself. During then the next 12 months, she has to do 10 training days within those 12 months, and then she has to relicense annually. So she has to go make sure that she's doing everything she should do.
So doing your license, how long does that actually take, the licensing process? Would that be assessed over a day?
A couple of days, depending on it depends. Like it could be a day or 2 days, depending on how many dogs you've got licensing at the time and how. But it's usually over a day or two. It's to make sure they recognise all the substances. They can search all like cars in your buildings. They're efficient. They're under control. They're doing the indication as they should do the indication. It's all that sort of thing to make sure that everything's in place as it should be.
When do they assess them again? So then they've got to do 10 days across the year.
Across the year they've got to do 10 days, and then every year they have to.
Which I think is incredible. I think that's a lot of assessment, isn't it? So sometimes the dog is out on assessment when they might be needed, but at the same time that's so important because they need to be.
But they need to be up to a certain level. You can't have.
Amazing.
Yeah, because otherwise you could have a dog that licenses and then, it goes out there and it's useless. It sounds awful, but it could be useless and not be doing the job properly. Yeah. So you need to make sure.
No, I was very impressed. I thought it was top in terms of that. And then tell me, I suppose, what lights you up about your job? What makes you jump out of bed in the morning and think, I am Kaz on the case? Like, what makes you excited about what you do?
I don't very often jump out.
Oh, come on, Kaz. I was like imagining
more call out. I love, for me, just working the dogs, watching the dogs work. When you have what we call a good dog job, like I say, a job where you wouldn't have got the result without the dog is the best
teamwork feeling.
Yeah, it's either whether that's you with your little drugs dog that's found an amazing hide that you would never, some of the concealments that people do because of these drug things are quite creative, very very sophisticated. So to find them that you would never have found without the dog is amazing. And then with your GP dog, if you have a good result like tracking or something like that, there's nothing that beats the feeling for me than like being on nights, tracking with my big girl and across the fields and thinking, I'm getting close here, we're on to this. They're not that far ahead of me. And then getting them, it's like, yeah, good girl.
No, brilliant.
But it's the same with, like I say, with Gwen or, well, hopefully with Pocker as well. It's that we've got, we've done really
like
well.
Like a really good team.
Yeah.
It's a really good team effort.
And them being, dogs being good at what they do because of all the effort and time you've put into them. So.
No, it's a great, I agree, it's a great feeling. And so, say the end of the evening, your dogs live with you, they go home with you, and they kennel or they're in the house? How does it work?
When Pocker was a pup, obviously she was in the house. Part of that was because I wanted her to learn to play with toys quite a lot, and if the others are there, I don't want her to think that she can't play with her toys because the others tell her off or try and pinch them all the time. Yeah. So when she was a puppy, she lived in the house, but as she's got older, she's gone outside. So they live outside in the kennel. For me, partly that's because it would be a little bit unfair, especially with your drugs dog, to say, right, you can come in my house, but you're not jumping on any of the furniture. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do whatever. Right, let's go to this house. Right, you can do what you want, because I want you to find it. So it'd be a little bit of a mixed message.
For you, it's very easy then to keep it sort of structured. This is your job. I want you to go all over everything.
Yeah, and the fact that the dog's actually been with me all day as well, at work, they might want their own space as well. So. Yeah, they do. I like them kennel.
And you guys get kennels from the police when you're as part of your
yes. But part of the job.
Yes. It's part of the job. And then I suppose one of the things I know that the listeners are going to want to hear and want to know about is what is the best reward for Pocker, which I kind of already know, and what is the best reward for Elsa too? Like, what are their favourite rewards? If they could choose, if they were to like have a little Christmas list, what would it be? What would they jot? Because I know like Blink, for example, her favourite thing in the world, I even know the brand of it. She likes the Air Kong squeaky ball. That's her favourite thing in the world. Whereas if I was picking, I don't know, for Everest, she would pick much more likely one of the tuggy, tug enough like fleecy tugs. That would be her favourite thing. She wants to rag it. So they have different things that they preference. Like, what would your girls be?
Yeah, Elsa's definitely a Kong. Well, Elsa's the Kong. Also, she quite likes she's got what we call a bite roll that she can sometimes she'll come back for and play with that, but mainly a Kong. Pocker's on the Kong at the minute, but it changes.
It
changed on a weekly basis. She was on the squeaky tennis balls. At the moment, she likes the Kong because she likes to grab it and rag it. So we might be going to find her on a little ragger just to see if that's any. It doesn't matter what toy, but she's undecided.
She likes them all.
Anything.
I love it. No, I love that. And then I just went out to the vehicle. So I was just out of the vehicle. I was taking a couple of pictures for a couple of the people in the training academy, which I think is really cool. So they could ask some questions as well. And when I went out there, your vehicle was lovely and calm and pretty settled. And I know there's no GP dog in there, so slightly different to having the GP dog in there. But she's pretty chilled in the car. Do they get settled with the car? Like, I mean, our dogs do because they travel to agility and shows. And being in the car is just like being in another mobile space, really. They treat it like their home. They spend time in there. Yeah. So how does the car work for you?
Yeah, very much the same. They spend, because obviously they work in the car. So from the early doors with Pocker, as a puppy, she's been travelling around with me going on what we call the immediate, so the blue light run. So she's had the sirens, heard them, and because that's what she's going to have all the time. So she's got to be relaxed. And what I want her to do, and the same with Elsa, is in between jobs when she is back in the van, that she does relax and get some rest and chills out. You will find the GP dogs a little bit when you start putting the blue lights and the sirens on. They know they're going to something. They get a little bit excited, some of them.
I remember working a few years ago, and when they heard the helicopter go up, it was like they were like spinning and bucking. But it is a hard one, right? Because a lot of the time they are involved, and they're going to be involved, and they kind of know this is the signal, I'm going to be involved. But I agree, I loved how calm she was when she wasn't needed. Yeah,
I mean, you'll sometimes look in the back, if I'm on nights and say we're having like half an hour, maybe not a lot's going on or something, you can look in the back of mine and they'll be all asleep. I'm thinking, that's great, you're on nights asleep, and you'll be full of beans in the morning.
And how about you? How do you recharge as a handler? What do you do if you fancy recharging? Because you must get tired too. Like, it must get tiring. Like,
you do. Usually, if I'm on nights and it's got a bit, I'm struggling here, we used to go and take the dogs for a walk and wake up that way somewhere.
Get the dogs out.
Get the dogs to go for a walk in the field somewhere and just wake up a bit and then carry on. But it depends. Most of the time you're quite busy, so you don't really get
no time.
There isn't. It's not all the time like that, but most of the time it's quite
Well, I think we've covered a huge amount, and I have to say I'm in massive admiration of what you do, and I have loved chatting to you about it, and I know that the listeners are going to love hearing some of that, because I think it gives a completely different perspective on dogs, and I think it gives a different perspective on what dogs can do and the amazing journey I think that you guys have had. So I want to say thank you.
That's okay, welcome.
So much for coming, and remember, audience, stay sexy.
Hey, before you go, have you taken part in the worldwide Sexier Than a Squirrel challenge?
It's a 25-day online video program, huge energy, amazing community, and over 6,000 people are already taking part.
The only question is, you know where you are today, where do you want to be 25 days from now? Head to absolutedogs.me/sexy.